Hello, welcome to the A to Z YouTube channel. I'm Toby Allen, I'm the A in A to Z, and I'm in charge of songwriting, engineering and producing. So today I want to talk about various amp sims that are available, and it feels like it's a good time to talk about them because a lot of them are on sale right now. I get a lot of questions about which ones I would recommend, which ones I like, which ones are great, which ones people should buy, etc, etc. And I thought maybe I could just talk about my opinions on some of the more mainstream amp sims and maybe some of the kind of less mainstream ones as well. A couple of disclaimers first off. I haven't included every single amp sim that's out there on the market just because there's too many and this video would be ridiculously long. Another thing I want to talk about is the fact that this is entirely my opinion. I've not been sponsored by any of these companies. I've not been told what to say or anything like that, and it's also very much based on my playing, my style of playing, and the kind of tones that I like. So this isn't a like be all and end all and like this is the facts kind of video. It's just like I enjoy these ones and I don't enjoy these ones. That's basically where we're coming from. Another thing as well that's really important, IRs, impulse responses, as in the cabinet and microphone relationship of the sound, is extremely important. And of course with most amp sims you can switch out the cabinet section, put in your own IR, so that will actually make a lot of difference to if you get an amp sim which doesn't sound particularly amazing, you change the IR on it, it will improve it. So, but we're not going to be talking about that as such, talking about just the amp sims themselves, most of which will come with their own IRs. So I'm taking it on face value. And the last thing as well is that for most of my own productions, I'm actually using the real amps rather than amp sims. I will often use amp sims for monitoring, for recording, just so I can get a DI down and actually hear a tone on it, but then it will get reamped through the real amps. Of course, I've used amp sims a lot on this channel and for various reasons, but for generally speaking, if I'm actually engineering a record with a band or for myself, then I'm using real amps. So all that aside, let's have a look at some of the amps. Now the ones I've included in this list, we have Emissary from STL Tones, we have Amped Roots from ML Sound Lab, we've got the Putney Tonality suite from STL Tones, we've got Archetype GOJIRA from Neural DSP, STL ToneHub, the Rectofire from Mercuriall, the Archteype Petrucci from Neural DSP, Loomis Toneforge from Joey Sturgis Tones, TH-U from Overloud, Reamp from Audio Assault, Bias Effects from Positive Grid, EZMix 2 from Toontrack, the Fortin Nameless suite from Neural DSP, S-Gear 2 from Scuffam Amps, Grindstein, the Grindstein from Audiority, the AmpKnob Revc from Bogren Digital, Amped Super Duper from ML Sound Lab, Amplitube 5 from IK Multimedia, Archetype Nolly from Neural DSP, AHM 5050 from Audio Assault, and ToneX from IK Multimedia. So first off, STL Tones Emissary. It's a freebie and it was my go-to for the longest time. For free, it's fantastic sounding. It's got several channels in it, and it also comes with NAD IR, which is one of the best, in my opinion, IR loaders on the market, and it comes with some really good sounding IRs as well. So you can get some really great tones. I mean, for demos, you could. There's no reason why you couldn't release a song using the tones that you get from that. But yeah, so it's alright. It's not amazing. It's not terrible. It's great for free. So yeah, that's where I'd put that. I think it's alright. Next one is ML Sound Lab Roots. Now this came out 2020. And it has a free version, which is based on an EVH5153 with an EL34. It's a really, really good sounding amp sim, and that one is free, and it sounds fantastic. So that is really, really good. And they've recently updated it to 2.0, which has the Warner engine, which makes it sound even more authentic. But the great thing is, if you get the full version, there's 3 more amps included as well. You get a 5150 block letter, there's a Friedman, and there's a Mesa Dual Rec as well. Now, interestingly, the Friedman is like the sleeper in that one. It sounds absolutely great, and I really, really like that one. It's just got a kind of a real sort of crunchy grittiness to it, which I really enjoy. Then next we've got the Will Putney Tonality Suite. This is great. It comes with 5 different amps, and the best thing about it, which is a very Will Putney thing, is that you can actually blend them as well. If you've seen the How It's Done course from URM Academy, you'll see that blending different amps together to make a single tone is a very Will Putney thing to do. And that's great that they've got that included in this amp sim, so you can actually load up multiple heads and multiple cabs at the same time, blend them together to get your own unique tone. I also like the fact that it's got the drop down menu, which gives you the presets, and some of those presets are actually specifically album tones, and the same for bass as well. There's very, very good Ampeg bass amp in there, and there's a whole bunch of tones specifically from albums that Will Putney has worked on, so it's very, very easy to get some great sounds out of it. Archetype GOJIRA. This is, in my opinion, the best neural DSP amp sim, so that goes into the ultimate chef's kiss category. There's 3 amps. You've got a clean amp, a rhythm amp, and a lead amp. They are based on I believe they are based on a Fender, an EVH5153 blue channel of an EL34, and the EVH5153 red channel. There's 3 cabs. You've got a Zilla cab, a Marshall cab with greenbacks, and a Miso cab with V30s. You've got a very, very usable pitch shifter on there, and it's just some fantastic tones. With all 3 of those amps, it's very easy to get a good tone on there, and it's very chunky. So that is absolute chef's kiss for me. Next is STL ToneHub. Now this is an interesting one because when it first came out, I wasn't a huge fan, but that was based entirely on the stock tones. If you go get some of the presets, such as some of the ones I've tried out on the channel before, like Jason Sukoff and Atrium Audio 2 and Colin Richardson, they are very, very good. The only thing I would say that kind of doesn't quite put it into that top tier is the fact that you need to get the additional packs to get it sounding good. In my opinion, if you just get the base version, then it's just not good enough. And the interface is not particularly amazing, and is not as tweakable as some of the other amps. It is really, really good for just going through the presets and just finding something and off you go. But if you want to, if you're the kind of person who wants to go in and dial and tweak and tweak and tweak, then it's not quite necessarily going to be the thing that does it for you. The other thing as well is that you can't turn the cabs off, so there's no way of changing the cab for an IR of your own choice, so that's a little bit of a turn off for me. But if you want something really quick that sounds good, just to either demo or to play through or whatever, it's really good, and it's very mix ready as well. Next is the Rectofire from Mercuriall. Now I believe this is based on a Revc, and it sounds really good. The only thing that doesn't quite get it to the top tier for me is that it is a little bit fizzy sounding. It may be that that's what the real amp sounds like. I've not actually used a Revc in real life, so I can't comment on that, but that just kind of just doesn't quite make it for me. The interface is a tiny bit clunky to use as well, but overall it does sound very, very good. The impulse responses that are included are made by Max Morton, who's known for working with Ginger, and they sound really, really good. So those are very, very impressive. There's a good amount of choice there. There's also a cabinet simulator as well, so you can load up the IRs. There's a whole bunch of IRs included, or you've got cab sim where you can actually drag the microphones around. So that one, I would say that's very, very gurnable, but not quite chef's kiss. The next one is Archetype Petrucci. This one, I was impressed with the effects. The transpose function is very, very good, and the double effect function is pretty cool for messing around with as well. It sounds great for leads, but for me it just did not do anything for me for the rhythm. So it was a meh for me, I'm afraid. That being said, if you want to do lots of leads or cleans, this is going to be the amp sim for you. But for rhythms, GOJIRA beats out every time. Then we've got the Jeff Loomis from Toneforge. This is I have a bit of a funny relationship with this one because I got this one the day before I got COVID, and every time I open the plugin, it just reminds me of one of the worst weeks of my life. So it's a really strange kind of thing, but that's one of the reasons why I've not used it a huge amount. It does sound really, really good. There's some really awesome features. The shred dial on the 5153 model. It does something with the transients, which makes it so that when you're playing like a really shreddy solo, you dial that up and you can hear every single note very, very well defined, even though there's tons and tons of gain. So that is a very, very useful feature. The skybox in it is very, very cool. And they actually went on to make a full plugin of just that reverb because it was that good, which has a whole bunch of extra features as well, which makes it really, really cool. And it's a reverb I use a lot. And it's got this kind of tone to it, like kind of this EQ curve, which is part of the Joey Magic button, I guess, that kind of makes it so it sits very nicely in a mix, but it's not necessarily as pleasant to play through just for jamming, in my opinion. The interface is a tiny bit clunky in as much as to access the pedals, you have to click the pedals, then click the pedals, then you can adjust the pedal, and then you go back, and it just seems like there's more clicks there than you need to. But one thing that's very, very cool is it's got a multi-band compressor to help tame the chugs. It's got a built-in EQ, which is very, very good as well. And one thing I use a lot for is actually a calibrate function, where it helps you to calibrate the gain on your DI box to make sure that you're getting the right levels when you're recording, which is very, very useful. But all that said, it gets an I for me. It's good, not as amazing as some of my favorite amp sims, but very, very usable. The next one in the list is TH-U from Overloud. Now this one, I'm basing my opinion on the version that comes with the Slate Digital All Access Pass, because that's the one that I've tried and used. There's definitely some usable tones in there. Some of the amp sims are very cool. There's a Randall one, which sounds really great, but then there's a lot that really don't sound great. The rig player is very hit and miss. There's some that sound amazing, there's some that sound really, really bad. And overall, the interface is very, very clunky, and it just feels like you're kind of way zoomed out from the amps. It's like not quite skeuomorphic, but not quite. It's hard to explain. It's very, you have to kind of scroll around, and it's just very strange. I'm not a huge fan of the interface on that one at all. It's difficult to navigate. The sounds are kind of hit and miss. So, but the sounds that are good are very good. The sounds that are not good are very not good. So this one gets an I from me. The next one is Reamp from Audio Assault. This has a lot of potential because there's a ton of different amps in there. There's even a sim of a Line 6 Spider Insane channel, which is hilarious. There's quite a few very coveted amps like Krankenstein and things, but unfortunately the IRs are I don't get on with them at all. I don't like the IRs in there, and the sims are very kind of fizzy and very digital sounding, so it's very, very budget. I mean, I think it was like $15 or something like that, and you get a whole bunch of different amps in it. So from that perspective, there's a lot of varieties. It could be useful for a beginner to learn what kind of amps they like, to figure out like, okay, I seem to gravitate more to the kind of Marshall kind of sounds, or gravitate more towards the sort of PV kind of sounds, or something from playing around with that, which then might help you to work out what big and good amp sims you're going to want in the future. So it could be useful from that kind of side of things. But overall, it's a meh. Bias effects from Positive Grid. It sounds like burnt toast. It's not for me. Yeah, no. EZMix 2. It's almost like a predecessor for ToneHub, in as much as you've got a whole bunch of presets, not a huge amount of tweaking, but it's built on older technology, so it's a bit more dated, and it doesn't sound quite as good as ToneHub does. Again, there's not very much there to go with on the base pack, and you're going to want to go for expansions if you want to be able to really use it for some chunky rhythms. For example, there's a Colin Richardson pack, there's the Guitar Gods packs, there's the Andy Sneap pack. So those are the kind of things you'd need to be looking at if you wanted to be able to use it for the kind of chunky rhythms and things that I do. Overall, kind of meh. But it's just because it's dated, and I bet that if Toontrack brought out EZMix 3, it would be amazing. So whether they do it or not, I have no idea. It'll be interesting to see in the future. The next we've got Nameless from Neural DSP. This is one that was introduced to me from the Nail the Mix session with Buster Oderholm, where he had Humanity's Last Breath, and that tone is absolutely filthy. So that really got my interest on this one. It does sound very, very good. It's one of the first, if not the first, Neural DSP plugins. So the interface and the features are quite basic compared to some of the more recent ones, but it does still stand up. It still is very good. It's basically based on a Meshuggah Fortin, which is essentially a modded Marshall Plexi. So it has that kind of sound. It has gain for absolute days, and it sounds very, very good for low tune stuff, which you'd expect from a Meshuggah amp, and one that's been used on Humanity's Last Breath. So there's definitely a lot going for it. It doesn't quite hold up to today's amp sims, so it's not quite a chef's kiss, but it's very gurnable. S-Gear 2 from Scuffam Amps. I think personally, this used to be included with the Slate Digital All Access Pass, so I'm basing on the version that comes with that. And I think from my experience, it was okay for like mid-gain leads. Like if you wanted a 70s Pink Floyd kind of sound, it worked quite well for that. But for metal rhythm, yeah, no. Grindstein from Audiority. This is one that doesn't seem to get a huge amount of love. You don't hear many people talking about it. It has a very specific purpose, which is for absolute disgusting filth, and it does it very, very well. So this one gets a chef's kiss from me, because when you want that HM2 tone, it does the job. It doesn't do very much else, but that job it does very well. This next one is a pretty recent one. It's the AmpKnob Revc from Bogren Digital. Very, very good. It's very basic. There is just literally one knob that you turn, and they've brought out an update which allows you to have a tuner and also to turn the cab off if you want to then have a cab loader after it. But more often than not, I just use the built-in cab. It's very, very solid. It sounds like a real amp. It sounds very, very good, and it does the job. It's my go-to for when I'm tracking and I want to just hear a tone while I'm recording. And it gets used a lot on demos as well, but it is very, very good. And if you're looking for an amp sim that is very basic but does the job and sounds amazing, I definitely recommend that one. And the next one is from ML Sound Lab, and it's Super Duper, which is based on a Dover DA50, I believe. And the interesting thing is that this sim came out within, I think, about 6 months of the amp coming out. So I thought that was really interesting, the fact that Mikko and the team were bringing out an amp sim of a amp that was really, really new. It's a very, very good amp from what I can gather. I've not used a real one, but I've seen a few demos and I've heard some recordings from people that I respect that sound very good. The sim itself is very cool. It's one of the cheaper ones on sale at the moment for like €19, I think. It's got 2 channels. So you've got a basically low gain / clean and a medium / high gain. It does sound really great. It's kind of the perfect marriage of like American tone and British tone. You can get a real sort of kind of genty kind of thing going on, but you can get kind of a plexi-ish, Marshall-y kind of sound. It's very versatile and very good, and you don't really hear many people talking about it. I mean, once it gets the update to the Vorna engine, I'm sure it will get upgraded to Chef's Kiss, but for now it's gurnable. Amplitube from IK Multimedia. I have a love-hate relationship with this. It promises to be very good. It has like loads and loads and loads of options to choose from, loads of speaker options. You can mix and match speakers in different cabs and mix and match the microphones and blend them together and stuff, but the speakers, you can spend hours and still struggle to get something you like, and instead just chuck an IR in. The amps themselves very hit and miss. Some of them sound great, some of them sound horrendous. And the interface I don't like. The tuner is like that. You need a magnifying glass to see, and it's like, what's even the point? Because you're looking at a couple of pixels to see whether you're in tune or not. I like to see something a bit more larger so I can see very clearly whether I'm in tune or not. So that's something that kind of aggravates me. The other thing is that the interface, it lists everything whether you own it or not, and so you end up thinking, oh, this looks cool, I'll try this. Oh no, I don't have that. And it's like, oh, it's trying to get you the DLC to try. It's like the EA of amp sims in that respect. It's kind of a little bit irritating. So with the issues it has with the tones and the issues with the interface, and sometimes there's issues with licensing as well, it's a meh for me. So the next one is Archetype Nolly. This is a very versatile amp sim from Neural DSP. It's got 4 amps in it. It's got a clean one, which is a Shiva. It's got a JCM 800 modded. It's got a 5150 block letter modded, and it's got a modded beyond recognition Victory amp, which I think is a Countess, which is modded and sounds kind of more like a Kraken than a Countess, but it sounds really cool anyway. You've got a few effects on here, which is nice, the reverb and delay. You've got 2 different overdrives to choose from. I believe there's a compressor as well. The JCM 800 is very good. I really like that. I'm a huge fan of that kind of high gain Marshall tone, and it really does the job nicely on that. The 5150, you can get some very believable kill switch engage kind of tones out of it as well. That kind of 2004 2005 metalcore sound is very achievable, especially if you combine it with GDD Cali as well. Yeah, it's really good. AHM 5050 from Audio Assault. It's a 5153 sim. You can switch between EL34 and 6L6, and you can balance between the 2 tones, which is kind of cool. But it sounds very digital and plasticky, and there's like this upper mid high fizziness that just will not go away even if you put a good IR on it. And yeah, no. And lastly, we've got ToneX from IK Multimedia. Now again, I have a bit of a conflicted relationship with this one, because on the one hand the interface is a bit annoying, the other hand, and also the IK, oh look, this amp looks really cool, oh no you don't own it thing in the interface is kind of frustrating. There's no tuner. All that being said, the tones themselves are exceptional. The tones that are included are not. There's a couple of usable ones, but the ability to profile a real amp and use that to make your own tone, and how authentic and realistic it sounds compared to the real thing, is ridiculously good. And I feel like it feels like maybe they dropped this a year earlier than they should have done, and maybe this time next year there'll be some updates that make it exceptionally good, and they fix all of the faults. That being said, the tones are very good, and even taking all of the cons aside, the pros way outweigh the cons. So this one still manages to get that chef's kiss status. Once things are fixed, it will be absolutely unstoppable. So thank you very much for watching, and let me know in the comments what you think. If there's any amp sims that you would have liked to have known more about that I didn't mention those in the comments. If I've used it, I can give you an opinion on how I think it sounds and where I would put it. And if you're interested in seeing more of these kind of videos, let me know, because I'm always up for having feedback on what you would like to see and hear from us on the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.